Hello again, everyone. I'm Teri Barr, the host of PennyWise podcast from Lee Enterprises, and always happy to have you joining us to get the latest ways to save your money, something I think we're all thinking about and talking about right now. But here's a question to start off. Are you in the market for a new car? Well, you may want to get ready to pay. And when I say pay, we are not just talking about the car. Thank goodness. We have Sara Rathner joining us today. Sara is a personal finance expert with NerdWallet. We have talked with you many times, and I think we've been able to save some money after some of these discussions, Sara.
I hope
Thanks
so.
for being here. Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to start out. There's a new survey from AAA, and it is showing the annual cost of owning and operating a new car right now is up 11%. And that equals about an extra $10,000 from a year ago.
Yeah.
What is going on? What is adding to all those costs?
Yeah, it's nearly $900 a month.
So,
So
ouch.
the big villain in the story, of course, is the cost of gas, which peaked at around $5 a gallon in June. It has come down since then. So hopefully it will redeem itself as the villain in this story at some point in the near future. But there are other costs associated with car ownership that you shouldn't ignore, that you should think about when you're looking to buy a car. Insurance is, of course, a big one. Certain types of cars are more expensive to insure than others. And you think about depreciation. That's when your car loses value once you drive it off the lot. A lot of times new cars lose their value more quickly at the beginning in the first couple of years, and then the depreciation kind of slows down as cars get older. And you also want to think about things like taxes, registration. Some states have personal property taxes associated with car ownership.
Right.
So these are all ongoing costs of having a car.
Okay, what about is there anything you can do to help keep these factors from adding up? You mentioned fuel price. What can you do?
Yeah, so obviously it's hard to avoid putting fuel in your car if you need to move it around. It's easy to say, oh, just drive less, but that's not the reality for a lot of people.
Right.
But if you can reduce your driving, if you can carpool, if you can bunch your errands in such a way that you take a more efficient route, you limit how many times you get in your car. Those are all great ways to potentially lower your mileage. But barring that, you can use apps like Gas Buddy or Google Maps to comparison shop and see if other gas stations in your area are offering lower prices. And that can be a really great way, because you might default to a specific gas station, but there's one up the street that's actually a little bit cheaper. You could also join loyalty programs at gas stations that allows you to save a couple cents per gallon oftentimes.
Hey, it adds up.
Yeah, and then combine that with a cash back credit card that earns a couple percent cash back. Anywhere from 2 or 3% cash back is pretty common for gas station purchases, and that's another way to save.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to ask you about where you live, and you kind of forget that depending upon where you live, there could be those extra fees, there could be parking fees. And it also, I have a note written to myself to mention, since we were just talking about gas, Texas right now, the average price is right around $346. California, it's still $537. I know you can't pick up and move just because of your car, but how can you do something about that? How should you remember to factor that thing in about where you live?
I mean, there are so many things that are factors when you decide where to live that may or may not have anything to do with cost. There are lots of emotional decisions that go into it. Maybe you're moving for a job, or to be close to family or friends, or to be, to move to a city that you just have always wanted to live in. So cost is obviously one factor, but there are so many things that hit you on a higher level when you decide where to live, that I would never tell somebody not to live somewhere they truly want to live because of the cost, if they can find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
But it is just something to keep in mind, if you're going to be moving to an area where the cost of car ownership is significantly higher. I mean, you can maybe pick a neighborhood that has more stuff you can walk to, although you often pay a premium for that as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe you can look into remote work instead of a job that you have to commute to,
Hmm.
because that can save on your commuting costs. Um, and commuting costs can be significant.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned the cost of parking. So you might live in a place where you have to pay to park your car at a garage where you
Hmm.
work. You might even have to pay to park your car at home because you don't have a driveway or your own garage. You might have to rent a garage or buy a residential parking pass from the city to park on the street. So those are all things to think about when you're looking into car ownership.
And it's interesting. I know you and I have had conversations about, that whole idea of what are benefits at work. And hopefully one of those benefits is free parking, or at least they drop the price for you, something to think about too if you're negotiating a new job.
Yeah, some employers will offer
Yeah.
free or subsidized parking in a garage near the office or even
Yeah.
connected to the office. Sometimes that can be in limited supply, so you definitely want to act fast. Some employers will also offer a subsidy to shave down the cost of taking public transit. So if you live in an area that's well served by public transit and it doesn't substantially add to your commute to take it, that can be a good route. Although I know many commuters, many workers bundle lots of different errands, dropping the kids off, picking the kids up when they're
Right.
coming to and from work. And that's not necessarily easy to do on public transit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good thing to talk about, though, and to know going into a place where you might want to be living, considering a new job or anything like that. I know we
Yeah.
sort of talked about insurance and depreciation. Is there something you can actually do about financing? When you're really, okay, I'm going to sign the dotted line, but how should I be prepared for financing this new car?
This is a moment to comparison shop. Before you set foot in any dealership and you start getting the hard sell, talk to representatives from a bank or credit union, maybe a bank you already have a relationship with. You can often do this all online. Just get
Yeah,
pre-approved for an auto loan from a financial institution that's not the dealership. And you might qualify for better terms than the dealer would offer, or the dealer can match those terms. But
that's
at
great.
least when you go to buy the car, you're coming in from a position of power. You're coming in from a position of, well, I don't have to settle for what you're offering because I already have something better. And that's always a good position to be in.
I
So,
love that.
in so
I
many different
love
life
that.
situations.
Yeah.
So you can have your power stance at the dealership, arms crossed, and it could be that what the dealer offers actually is very good for what you're looking for. And I
Mhm.
would say if you already have a car loan, if you bought a car recently and your interest rate is 14% or higher, maybe, yeah, which is it's the situation for a lot of people.
Whew.
Even though interest rates are pretty high right now, it's still worth looking around to see if perhaps you could qualify for a loan refinance that would save you money on interest as well.
Why not when we're talking
Yeah.
about this stuff?
Why
And then
not
I
save
guess,
money, right?
yes,
Yeah.
that's why we're here. Oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
then when we talk about the things I guess you have to have license and registration, there's
Yep.
really, I mean, is there anything you can do about that? Probably not, I'm going to guess.
No,
Okay.
you can't really negotiate the cost of renewing your driver's license and your registration. So
Right.
that's just something to be aware of and add to your budget,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep.
Those are thankfully pretty small costs compared to a lot of the other costs of car ownership.
Yes.
But it is just something to keep in mind, especially if you're relocating and bringing your car with you and changing the
Yeah.
registration over to a new state, things like that.
Yeah. And do it right away. Don't wait. I
Yeah, I
waited
think
one
there are
time
rules
and
about how long you can, it's like 30 days or
oh,
something like
yes. And it'll
that. Yeah.
cost you if you wait past those 30 days.
Yes, it,
I can
yes, it
vouch
will.
for that.
Yeah.
And one thing you have to sort of really keep an eye on too is regular maintenance. I mean, that will help the car last, but sometimes that could get a little pricey.
It can. I mean, you're paying not just for parts, but also for labor. And both of those things are more expensive now. And
Right.
there might also be delays on specific parts. We've all been dealing with the outcomes of all these supply chain issues that have been going on for a while. So yeah, it's definitely something you don't, if something's going on with your car, you don't want to wait too long to get it looked at, just in case it's something serious, in case they need to order a part for you and there's a bit of a wait.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go there and ask you now about electric cars. We keep
Yeah.
seeing so much about, if you can buy one now, do it. What do you
Um,
think?
well, here's the thing. I mean, so there are many people for whom buying an EV is a good choice. It fits in with the way they live their life with their commuting and driving habits. And they're able to either have a charging station in their own driveway or their own garage, or they live near a charging station or work near a charging station. Basically, the infrastructure exists in your life to support the care and feeding of an electric vehicle, but they are more expensive. And so if you're thinking about buying an EV just to save on gas, it's going to take a couple years to recoup that, those costs essentially. And so, it is cheaper to charge an EV than it is to fill up a gas tank on an annual basis, but you are also paying so much more for the car. There are lots of people who sort of split the difference, and they'll have one EV and one gas car in their household if they have two cars. But it really just depends on what's going on with your life. I mean, I personally live in an area where I don't have parking with my house. I have to park on the street, and I don't necessarily get a spot in front of my house every day. I usually don't. So for people who live in circumstances like that, maybe you live in an apartment building without parking, things like that, you're not going to have your own dedicated charging station. So that's something to think about.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Good things to think about.
Yeah. I mean, I think things are going to change pretty dramatically within the next 10 years. So there's still a lot to be seen. But if it's something you're interested in, it's definitely worth thinking about. If you know people who own EVs, talk to them about their experience.
Perfect. Just wanted to note the average price of a new car right now, and I guess this is just your general new car, is about $33,000, 300, something like that.
Yep.
And that compares to last year, which was 32,000.
Right. So it's only $1,000 difference, but that is an average.
Yeah. And we've watched that price slowly creep up over the last couple of years. So I guess, Sarah, what would be the bottom line for people right now? Maybe they have to get a new car or just really want a new car. You're seeing all the new cars traveling down the highway on those trucks, and some people can't stand it. They want one now.
I know. Yeah. Some people like to drive a car literally into the ground, and some people like to replace their car every 2 years. And that's a personal preference. I would say, just like you would comparison shop for an auto loan, you want a comparison shop for a car. And just note that with the chip shortage going on, it's not unheard of for cars to be delivered to dealerships without their full features packages. So what's sitting on the lot might not be what you're looking for and what you want to pay for. So sometimes it's in your best interest to order the car directly from the manufacturer rather than buy it at a dealership. But do your due diligence and see what features you absolutely have to have and what you can live without. And see if there are other similar cars that might be a little bit closer to your car buying budget that maybe look a little bit different, but they have everything that you're looking for. They just aren't the car you always thought you wanted. So be open to other options. This is the time to be flexible, because if you don't have that flexibility, if you're very, you're wedded to one specific type of car with a certain set of features, you might pay a lot more for it than you would have a couple years ago.
Okay. All good things to know. And I think we've talked about this many, many times, Sarah. Now is the time, really. If you've bought things in the past and didn't necessarily research, but you knew what you wanted to spend, okay. But these really are days of doing your research and comparing. I feel like that's right.
Yeah. Our budgets are stretched more thinly than they have been in the past. I don't know about you, but my checking account looks a little lighter than it normally does. And I mean, my spending habits have not changed. At least my purchasing habits haven't. Unfortunately, what I spend on those purchases has gone up.
Right.
And so at a time where you have lots of other competing financial obligations, buying a car deserves time and thought, because it is one of the largest purchases you make. It's not like buying a sweater. You can't just buy it and if it's okay, and whatever. I mean, this is a major purchase that is something you're going to be using every day for years potentially. And, in some cases passing down to your kids or selling to a neighbor. I mean, cars last a long time. And so you do want to think about your life and what kind of car would best fit in with it.
That's excellent. Oh, Sara Rathner. She is a personal finance expert with NerdWallet, and she does get to join us often to talk about your personal finances and saving that money that you're working so hard to make. Sara, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for listening to another NerdWallet podcast with Sara Rathner and I. I'm Teri Barr from Lee Enterprises. Great to have you along with us, and we just want to help you save that money.